Welcome to Green and Steel. Today we're just going to be cutting wood for the entire duration of this video, so I hope you like that. See you in the next one. Just kidding, we're going to be making a beautiful maple coffee table today. Make sure you stay tuned to the end to see how hot this table turns out, because it does turn out hot. Now, step one, we just want to cut our wood to the proper width and make sure that we have nice flat sides so that we can glue these up together and everything sits together nicely. So now you're going to want to make some random dots that don't help you in any way, followed by some random lines that also don't mean anything. And just keep making a few more until you feel like you've made enough, and then make some more dots after that. So what I actually did here was I marked out where my dowels are going to be, and the dowels are used to align your pieces of wood when you go to glue your wood together. Now before I drill the actual holes for where my dowels are going to be, I like to start by making a tiny pilot hole, so that when I'm drilling my big holes, my drill bit stays where it needs to be. Now you're going to want to use your white fluid to fill your holes and jam your wood into them. So now that I've gotten all the dowels knocked in, it's time to start spreading glue on all the edges so that I can get this wood clamped together. Now keep in mind, when you're doing your dowels and you're drilling those holes, make sure you're really precise, or else things won't line up and the glue up process will be a big pain. Now, once you've smacked all your wood together and the dowels slid into place, it's time for you to start filling any cracks you see with some wood glue. And you can just kind of use your finger and just spread it along those cracks. So now once you've filled those cracks, it's time to start grabbing your clamps and clamping this table together for about the next 24 hours at least. I find it gets a little uncomfortable to clamp my wood for more than 24 to 48 hours. So unfortunately, I do not have access to an industrial shop where they can just plane my table for me. So I have to use a router sled, which does the trick. It's just a little bit of a pain. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm surfacing this with a router sled. Now, something that really does suck about using the router sled is that it leaves a ton of lines after you're done surfacing. So you have to come back with the sander and sand all of those lines off before moving on to the next step. The next step is to fill any little imperfections we see in our tabletop. So what I like to do is I like to grab the tiniest chisel I can find, and I open up any little holes or cracks I see just big enough so that we can pour some CA glue in there. And then once the CA glue hardens, we'll come back with the sander and make sure everything's nice and flat. I usually like them a little curvy, but in the case of tables, flat is where it's at. Now, once you're ready to fill your imperfections with CA glue, just make sure that you pour your CA glue as haphazardly as you possibly can, just so it makes it extra difficult for you to sand later on. That's the key, I think. Now, obviously, that's horrible advice. I don't know what I was doing here, but it's okay. We're going to come back with the sander, and we're going to fix everything up. Next, you're going to want to sand a ton until all those little voids that you filled with CA glue are nice and flat again. And once you've done that, then you can move on to the next step, which would be to cut your table to size. Now, there are a few different ways to make perfectly straight cuts. The first and most expensive way is to just get a track saw, which is probably the best method. But if you don't have the budget for that, then you can just get this guide that I have, and it just clamps right to your table, and you can just run your saw right up against it. You know the drill. We crack out the pencil and the square again to make it seem like we know what we're doing, and we just make some more indiscriminate markings. So obviously I made these markings so I know exactly where my table legs are going to sit. And once I've done that, then I start marking the holes so I can start drilling for my threaded inserts. So now here I am drilling to the proper depth for my threaded insert to sit. And now here I am installing the threaded insert itself. And when you are installing this threaded insert, you don't want your wood to split. So make sure you go in about maybe a half turn and then go a quarter turn out. And then a half turn in and then a quarter turn out. And you kind of just keep doing that until your threaded insert is all the way in. Now it's finally time to route our edges, and I just went with a round over for the underside and a chamfer for the top side. And I just really like this step because it's finally when our table starts to look finished and professional. Now before we apply our finish, I'm just coming back with our isopropyl alcohol and wiping off all the sawdust I possibly can. Now we can finally grab our Odie's oil, and we can use our stir stick to stir it up really well and apply a few dabs to the tabletop, and then we grab our pad and start rubbing it in very thoroughly. Make sure you really get in there and massage that wood. Don't be shy. We like to make our tables with love. Now keep in mind on this step, a little bit of Odie's oil does go a long way, so don't use too much. Now, make sure you apply your Odie's oil to both sides ASAP or else you can get warping issues, so I've heard. And then after about an hour, you come back with a towel and you rub off all the Odie's oil you possibly can. You can leave too much on, but you can't take too much off, so be very thorough. So here we have the final product after the finish has been applied, and it looks beautiful. That finish brought out those patterns very nicely, and the grain looks fantastic. So if you are interested in purchasing this table, go ahead and go to my Etsy. The link is in the description. And if you would like something custom made, then get in contact with me via Etsy or Instagram, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.